Psalm 64. For the director of music, a psalm of David. Hear me, my God, as I voice my complaint. Protect my life from the slit of the enemy. Hide me from the conspiracy of the wicked, from the plot of evildoers. They sharpen their tongues like swords, and aim cruel words like deadly arrows. They shoot from ambush at the innocent. They shoot suddenly without fear. They encourage each other in evil plans. They talk about hiding their snares. They say, "Who will see it?" They plot injustice and said, "We have devised a perfect plan." Surely the human mind and heart are cunning. But God will shoot them with his arrows. They will suddenly be struck down. He will turn their own tongues against them and bring them to ruin. All who see them will shake their heads in scorn. All people will fear. They will proclaim the works of God and ponder what he has done. The righteous will rejoice in the Lord and take refuge in him. All the upright in heart will glory in him. Amen. Psalm 64 is a confident prayer to God for protection when threatened by a conspiracy. It is a psalm of David, and he was suffering. Today I want to share with you that God's way to solving our problems are different than our ways. When we read about this psalm, we can see that David had been experiencing sufferings and fear. Thinking about David's life, he had experienced many more hard times than peaceful times. He had to escape from Saul, who had great jealousy toward David. After he became the king of Israel, he committed a sin related with Bathsheba. He had to suffer because of his sin, and after that, he had to escape from his own son Absalom. In his life, there were many things that he wanted to ask God. Why, God, did you do this to me? We can see that the life of David had ups and downs. How about your lives? Your lives are filled with much more peace than trials or problems. Or is it the opposite? If you start having problems which you have never experienced before, what would you do? Or when you have suffered a lot, how would you handle that? Some of you will probably try to understand the problems and then find help or encouragement. And some of you may pray to God and ask him for help. How would you pray to God? What would you say to him? In today's scriptures, how did David, pray to God? I will read verse 1 and 2. Hear me, my God, as I voice my complaint. Protect my life from the slit of the enemy. Hide me from the conspiracy of the wicked, from the plot of evildoers. David prayed that God would hear him, protect his life from the slit of his enemies, and hide him from the conspiracy of the wicked, from the plots of evildoers. He just prayed to God to hear him, protect him, and hide him from the enemy or the wicked. He prayed with confidence for protection when he was threatened. He did not pray like, God, please give me power to defeat the enemies, or, Lord, please teach me how I could defeat them. He relied on God in order that his enemies would be overthrown by God. David understood that revenge is not the will of God, but God's judgment with righteousness. David was human, so he probably wanted to have revenge on his enemies by the power of God. But he did not try to defeat them by his power from God. He prayed for protection for him. He prayed that God would hear his prayers and hide him. David was put in a very severe situation. What do you think of it? In today's scriptures, from verse 3 through 6, I think we can understand. It says, they sharpen their tongues like swords, and aim cruel words like deadly arrows. They shoot from ambush at the innocent. They shoot suddenly without fear. Then encourage each other in evil plans. They talk about hiding their snares. They say, who will see it? They plot injustice and said, we have devised a perfect plan. Surely the human mind and heart are cunning. His enemies tried to use evil words and tried to hurt him. They made secret evil plans against David. They thought that no one was able to see their plans and actions. They thought these plans were perfect and were not going to fail. The last part of verse 6 says, surely the human mind and heart are cunning. We cannot see other people's thought. No matter how good or faithful a person may seem to be, only God can see the person's heart. It looked like David was battling this world. God made humans as a little lower than the angels. So our ability to create and imagine is unlimited. As humans, we can create various kinds of things and technologies, and we can make our lives convenient and comfortable. We can understand and improve ourselves. How are we using our minds? For evil or good? Our thoughts can be kept secret from others. As humans, we tend to use our gifts received from God, like our minds, as tools for sinning. Humans can have evil thoughts while also keeping it hidden from others. Humans can do what they want, but what about God? I will read verse 7 and 8. But God will shoot them with his arrows. They will suddenly be struck down. He will turn their own tongues against them and bring them to ruin. All who see them will shake their heads in scorn. God talks about shooting them arrows and striking them down. God does not overlook evil. It's ironic that the Bible said that the enemies aim cruel words like deadly arrows, and they shoot from ambush at the innocent, or they shoot suddenly without fear. And also that God will shoot them with his arrows. Even if it's hard to distinguish whether our actions are good or evil, he will intervene in our lives and judgment will come. I pray that we give our worries to the Lord, and God will defeat them and make you righteous again. I will read the psalm about how David trusted God. Psalm 55:22. It says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." David was being threatened both physically and spiritually, but he knew that God would defeat evil. And he also understood that he should not take revenge. David knew that all he needed is God's protection. If you were in the same situation as David, how would you pray to God? And I will read verse 9. All people will fear, they will proclaim the works of God and ponder what he has done. When God takes action, humans can do nothing but to fear God and proclaim his works. God can show us that he is the living one, and he has the authority over the world, and no human can defeat the living God. I will read the verses from Proverbs 14:12. It says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." He says the same things in 16:25. The same things. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death is a repeated message in the Bible. This verse teaches us how dangerous and meaningless it is for humans to live without the true God. David was threatened by his enemies. I think each of us has been threatened by people or problems alone as before. We should instead fear, not consulting with God. And the last verse then says, "The righteous will rejoice in the Lord and take refuge in him. All the upright in heart will glory in him." The word rejoice is written. When we read this psalm, we can see that the prayers for protection from our enemies concluded with rejoicing and praise to God. David's prayer changed from in fear to in peace. What do you imagine from the phrase, "Take refuge in him"? It is being together or being inside of God. It is God's way to resolve our problem in the world. God does not want us to take revenge on our enemies by ourselves, but God wants us to take refuge in him. Through our suffering and problems, He will lead us into a relationship with God and to trust Him. We read the book of Job so we can understand why God let us experience pain or sufferings even if we have good faith. When we read Job, what did we learn from the book? One thing is that through his trials, Job understood God more. And this experience, though it was very painful for Job, his faith had changed from hear God into see God. If we experience sufferings and problems, God is the one who will fix our suffering. It's not we. And God is the one who can bring us into rejoice with Him and glory in Him. I pray that we will overcome our problems and sufferings by not taking our ways, but God's way to resolve it. I pray. Lord, thank you so much for giving us your words